Hello activators, this is Martin Nafuka and a very good morning to you. We are live here on Unam Radio. This is Activated Talks, the Global Affairs segment. I'm joined by Giovanni du Plessis, my co-host on the Global Affairs segment, and this is where we discuss global politics and global affairs as concerned with politics. So what we do is that we do informed research on whatever topic that we come here to discuss with you, informed and proper research, and then we come here and share our findings with you. So today's topic, we want to look at ethnicity in African politics, and how ethnicity influences the outcomes of African politics. And then after that, we are going to look at, a little bit of what's happening worldwide, politically, and how these events matter, how these events influences us as Namibians, and as Africans. So we are going to start off with the South African elections, just a little bit outlook of the South African elections. Giovanni du Plessis, what do you think about the recent South African elections? How does it impact Namibia? What are the future prospects per se?
Wow, the South African elections was a roller coaster. There was a lot of ups, there were a lot of downs. There was some misinformation being spread around by certain parties. We won't mention parties' names here, but we all seen the disinformation being spread around.
I think we can mention parties. I don't see how that is wrong.
Okay, so one of the parties that spread a little bit of disinformation was the ANC, to one of the smaller parties saying that Indians are our enemies, Muslims are our enemies. But then the guy said they're not our enemies. Muslims are not our enemies, they're our brothers in effect. But then they only use the part where he says Muslims are our enemies. So they actually, by using that piece of the clip, they were spreading disinformation. So everyone's like, wow, how could this politician say that Muslims are our enemies? But it's all a bit like they didn't use the full broad length of the video that was actually set out.
Wow, so, that's interesting. So we see ethnicity coming into play there.
Right there, yeah.
Because Muslims, okay, maybe also religion coming into play there as well with mentioning of Muslims. But moving forward, what is their prospects? What are the prospects for a coalition?
A coalition government is very likely. The way a lot of
it's inevitable right now.
At this stage, they need about 50% past the 50% mark.
Would you think they are going to form a coalition with the ANC?
Sure, the ANC, the only possible coalition government that can happen right now is with the DA. A lot of South Africans don't like it, but unfortunately, that's the only way moving forward. The international markets do not allow for MK or EFF to do a coalition government with the EFF. EFF wants to do a coalition government, but they have certain rules before they want to enter into this coalition government. But then DA also have certain rules. But as we can see, the international markets prefer the DA. Unfortunately, that is the case now.
That could be probably because of their liberal policies, and their liberal nature. Ladies and gentlemen, that was on the part of the South African elections. Of course, we also saw ethnicity playing in the South African elections with the rising of Zuma's party, the MK party, which was predominantly voted by the Zulus by a large margin.
Yeah.
So you can see that these people are voting on the lines of ethnicity as well. So moving on to the role of ethnicity in African politics, we all know that ethnicity or tribalism was invented in Africa by the European colonizers who came into Africa, and they were using the strategy of divide and rule, which was very useful. They came here and they made it clear that, look, there's a distinction between Hereros, Damaras, Bambus. You people are different people, and you people have a reason to hate each other because all these different groups, they want to survive, and each group is willing to survive at the detriment of the other group. So they created this division, and this possible hostilities that survived colonialism and is now being experienced right now in the current independent Africa, in most independent African countries. So we see a lot of ethnic driven conflicts as well going on. Why do you think we have ethnic conflicts in Africa, if we can discuss that?
Bringing it back to the point you just said, that it all came from the Europeans when they were conquering France, Belgium, all of these countries when they were colonizing Africa. They never actually looked to say no. Let us colonize. Let's say in this area, we're going to create a country just for Shivambo people, or we're going to create a country just for Nama people. They were just like, okay, the Africans, doesn't matter. They are subhuman, just draw the lines, and then you call this a country now. Now, at the end of the day, we are sitting with this problem now of having 6 different ethnicities in one country. And the reason why these ethnicities sometimes fight against each other is because of favoritism that the Europeans showed. Some European countries, some Europeans would show favoritism to, let's say, the Overhereros or the Namas. These are just examples. I know they didn't show favoritism to the Overhereros or the Namas due to the genocide. Just an example. Please don't come for us in the comments.
I mean, an example of favoritism is, it played out in Rwanda as well. And that favoritism...
The Tutsis, so the Tutsis were pulled in front, and then that caused the Tutsi genocide.
Yeah, massive, massacre.
Yeah, and then another one would also be a very good example of Nigeria. There was also... conflicts in Nigeria between 1967 until 1970 due also to some of the ethnic ethnic groups being put forward by the British government also. So that also caused some problems also.
So the Europeans really used ethnicity as a political tool and as a tool of control
on the African continent.
And that problem survived colonialism and is now still predominantly existing in African politics, in the African reality.
And our African leaders inherited this, but they're still using the same system. They're still using divide and conquer.
So we then have a situation where politicians are using ethnicity as a political tool to garner votes, to divide and to make sure that their particular political faction, their particular ethnic faction, is having more access to resources. So we have a case where politicians would then try to influence chiefs, of particular tribal groups.
Yes.
Maybe buy them out, give them money, give them cars, give them whatever resources, give them recognition. And in return, these chiefs are supposed to go back to their people and inform them that, look, vote for this particular party.
But that is exactly the same thing that the Europeans did. Tying it back to Europeans, they're using exactly the same tactics that the Europeans use of divide and conquer. So the Europeans would also come to a chief and say, okay, we're not going to directly rule you, but you're going to implement our policies. When you're going to get favoritism from us.
Exactly. We have seen that with the contract labor system in Namibia. That was happening. These people were working very closely with their chiefs in the north, in Wavamboland, Kavango. They were working very closely with the chiefs. They say that, look, do this, implement our policies for us. These are the benefits for you. Yeah.
And another thing is, like, the average person is so afraid of his chief. He will never stand up against his chief.
Exactly.
He will stand up against the white colonizer, but he will never stand up against his chief.
And that's why it's so effective for these people to use chiefs, because look, as a chief, you have legitimacy.
Yes, through the government, you have a lot of legitimacy.
You have a certain form of legitimacy that also implies on your people, right? So your people are like obliged to follow. And it also comes back to traditional values and norms to say that, look, the chief, is this superior being who is watching over us. And what the chief says is right. We should follow the chief.
Because we have this motion that, back in the day, chiefs used to be the head of the tribe. Yeah. They used to be in the forefront of the war. He was a father figure of the community.
And he's still
seen in most cases, like even in Namibia.
Especially in rural Namibia, up north. Maybe some areas of the south
still down there also.
It's very problematic as well.
So the political parties come to the chiefs, as you said, offer them, now you're going to get this car, you're going to get this benefit, you're going to get that benefit. Just tell your people, when polling comes, tell them to vote for this political party.
But this thing of using ethnicity as a political instrument, Giovanni, as we have seen, is that it has hampered nation building. The spirit of nationalism. Because how can I be a Namibian if I believe more in being a Vambo, or if I believe more in being a Herero, or I believe more in being a Nama? How then can I say that I believe in the concept of being a Namibian? Or what makes me Namibian?
What makes you a Namibian is, it comes back to the geographical area that you were born in.
Yes.
That makes you a Namibian. By ethnicity, you would be classified as a Vambu, Herero, and so on. But by the geographic area that you're born in makes you Namibian. Now, as a Namibian being born in this specific geographical area, there's history towards this geographic area. What you call it, a common history. As we fought the Germans together, as we faced apartheid together. So these are things that we have in common as Namibians. We can say, no, I'm a Namibian. Doesn't mean because you're a Herero, you didn't fight together with me in the apartheid era or fighting against the Germans in that sense. We went through a lot of struggles together, even bringing it closer right now to the pandemic. We fought the pandemic as a Namibia. We didn't fight the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. We didn't fight it as, no, I'm a Herero. Hereros are going to fight the pandemic in this manner.
Exactly.
We fought it as a Namibian.
But now we see with the thing of ethnicity and tribalism being used as a political tool, we see certain geographical areas where these specific ethnic groups are not getting development. We have seen for the past 34 years, certain geographical groups are not getting development, and it has been established that it's because of political reasons, because that particular ethnic group is not supporting the ideology of a particular party which is in control.
Which is very wrong. In a sense, it's very wrong, because as a Namibian, I have the right to all our resources. Doesn't mean because I am affiliated to this certain political party, or that I am a Nama or a Herero, and I'm let's say Namas. Unfortunately, this is the case in Namibia also, that certain tribal groups prefer voting for certain parties. So it doesn't mean because I'm a Shivambo person, I prefer voting for SWAPO, I shouldn't get access to water, I shouldn't get access to opportunities, to mining opportunities and so on, which is very wrong. And this is not said in our constitution. So in our constitution, it states the resources are for all Namibians, not only for certain Namibians or for certain political parties to deal out with this.
So that then points out that the multi-party democracy for Africa is not as effective, because at the end of the day, we are not going to see democracy functioning or working out in the way that it was intended to.
But that was a seed planted by the Europeans.
Exactly. And
the multi-party,
it's working out properly.
Very properly for them.
Because we have parties that are literally for a specific tribal group, ethnic group.
And that's the thing, in the US, there's two parties. In the UK, there are two parties. These are the pillars of democracy, but they allowed us to have a multi-party system because they helped draw up our constitution.
Exactly.
So they allowed us to have a multi-party system, knowing that this is going to cause tribal lines, it's going to cross tribal lines. So I would say these are seeds planted, which we need to do away with. The multi-party system, I know a lot of Namibians are going to be against it, but unfortunately for development to happen, we need just two parties. We do not need all of these extra parties jumping up left, right, and center. Now, in the current administration is also using this party to their advantage,
Yeah.
Because let's say I'm jumping up. Look at a beautiful example of the LPM. So LPM's, what is the SABEP guy that just left? So he's going to take a certain percentage of the party of LPM's members again, bringing it back to SWAPO again. So these are things that work in favor of liberation parties. Coming back to South Africa also, coming back to Zimbabwe also, coming back to Namibia also. This works in the favor of the political parties, the current ruling political parties also, by having this multi-party systems, because they could never stand up fully. They could never, let's say I start a party tomorrow. The possibility of my party taking on the current ruling party is very low.
And I think as much as multi-democracy is not working for us as Africans, I think one problem that we have is the lack of political will for proper civic education to ensure nation building. Like, the government keeps talking about unity in diversity, building nationalism, solidarity, but what policies are actually in place, that are ensured to be effective to ensure that, look, Namibians build a spirit of solidarity, which erases the idea of tribalism, erases the idea of clinging to a particular ethnic group, but then brings the reality of Namibians coming together to build, this sense of nationalism, actually, to working towards prosperity and solidarity.
Currently, I do not know of any policies. I'll be quite honest with you. I do not know any policies that the government has passed or has been passed through Parliament to bring the nation together. There is no national policy put forth by government that I am aware of. So let me say very carefully that I am aware of. There may be one, but I'm not seeing it being implemented, or I'm not seeing it anyway being broadcast or anyway.
Yeah.
So for nation building, we need a sense of belonging.
Exactly.
So one thing also government has to do away with is asking on questionnaires. Even when you apply for government jobs and so on, or you apply for any institution of government, there's always the thing is, are you Herero, are you Damara, are you Bantu, are you mixed race, are you, Caucasian? We should do away with that. We should just ask, are you Namibian? Exactly. That brings us back together.
It raises the whole notion of solidarity, unity in diversity.
Yeah.
Why? I don't think we are going to get to a place where we have concrete nation building when we still have the picture of tribalism and ethnicity in place.
And one beautiful example was Italy. Italy is not a very old country, but Italy had a lot of mixture in Italy. Yeah. So if you even see like the northern part of Italy, there are more Caucasian features, let me put it in that manner, with people more blonde hair, blue-eyed. Down here, they mixed more with the Arabs that came. So these ones have a more darker skin tone, and there were different variations of Italian.
So
Italy's government brought Italy together to make Italy as one Italy.
Yeah.
Through nationalization.
So we have seen, Giovanni, that ethnicity has been a large contributor to conflict in Africa. What's happening in DRC, what's happening in Sudan right now, things that have happened in Nigeria in the past. You look at Madagascar, you look at Mozambique. Some of these cases might be religion-driven as well, but ethnicity is definitely a catalyst for conflict in most African realities. Because now we also have the question of legitimacy, to say that why must the leader be from a particular ethnic group? And then we also have the issue of different ethnic groups vying for resources. And if they feel like they're being excluded, they resort to violent means to try and get access to these particular resources. So I think through nation building, for every country in Africa, I think is the way forward, and maybe a true solidarity in terms of Pan-Africanism, a sense of being African and, brethrenhood, in terms of African
I get what you mean,
is what we need going forward. And I think it's one of the things that the AU should put on their agenda strictly to maybe try and enforce.
But before we can expect this from the AU, we should expect it also from home first. Something starts at home.
Exactly.
So even as parents at home, stop the thing of, no, you are a Damara, you are. Be proud of who you are. But don't tell your child that you are better than another person.
I mean, look, it's important that we acknowledge our tribal roots, where we come from and stuff. But now we have adapted this Western reality that we are currently living in. And it's not going to work for us and as a nation if we, keep clinging to our tribal roots. Maybe we try to preserve our cultures, but we cannot build a nation if we keep clinging to our tribal roots.
And one thing that government also needs to start doing is bringing these different affected parties. So let's use a beautiful example of the genocide, Namibian genocide that happened. Bring the Heroes, the Namas, and the Germans to one table. So we can sort this story out for once and for all, because this story has been brewing now for more than 100 years.
Exactly.
Because remember, the genocide happened in the early 1904.
Yeah, 94.
94.
No,
it's
04.
04. Yeah,
Gosh.
so it's more than 100 years ago. But the story has not been resolved. Till today, we are fighting that story. So it's about time we bring the people around the table, resolve these issues, and move forward. If there needs to be compensation, give the compensation, and let's move forward. And let's not forget the history. It's very important. Let us remember the history.
Yeah, we can never forget history.
Let us move forward with a good heart.
And I think one thing also that this colonial project did is made Africans forget their true African values.
Of Ubuntu,
Ubuntu, Pan-Africanism, solidarity. They found us in these African countries. In Namibia, they found us. We were cooperating with one another.
Living in harmony with one another.
Yeah, the spirit of Pan-Africanism was still a thing. And I think these values are what we need to bring back. So we have looked at how ethnicity literally influences African politics, how ethnicity is catalyst for violence and conflict in Africa, how ethnicity has hampered nation building in African countries, particularly in Namibia. Ethnicity has hampered solidarity within African countries. And I think it should be major national policies for African countries to try and see what prospects for nation building, what prospects can be effective in terms of doing away with ethnicity, as a driver for conflict, as a tool for politics. Okay, so Giovanni, I think what we can look at next is maybe touch a little bit of what's happening in the world right now. These global affairs.
At the end of the day.
So we need to look at what's happening in the world right now, major events that are really important right now. I mean, we have seen the developments happening in Palestine. Israel has ignored orders from the International Court of Justice to not go into Rafah, where there's a major population and people are,
a major density of population.
Yeah, but they ignored this and they went forward. What else do we have? We have
the President Trump's indictment also.
Oh, that's a very
big one. And remember, guys, whether you like him or not, he can still run for presidency.
Yes.
Even though he has the indictments, he can still run for presidency.
Even if he goes to jail, he can run for presidency.
This is something very important. I've seen a lot of people don't actually know internationally.
And then he can pardon himself
again for those indictments. Very important.
That's big. We have a new happening. We have the Africa-Korea Summit. Africa-South-Korea Summit that's happening. Again, we discussed the Africa-Italy Summit last time. We are very pessimistic about these things because why? Look, maybe you have the AU Italy Summit or the AU South Korea Summit. Because this thing of having 54 heads of state sitting with one head of state is not giving.
Really, guys, why can you not come to us here? At the end of the day, you need our resources at the end of the day.
Exactly. So I think it's one way that Africa is being, pushed around on this global stage. Africa's power is really being minimized, and these people are not checking us.
They're not checking us on a serious note. On the international, these are people, they always get angry, but on a serious note, no one is actually checking Africa with a serious face on the international stage.
The Russia-Ukraine war is ongoing.
The US just allowed for weapons, its weapons to be used in Russia. Putin warned about this. It can cause dramatic.
This can definitely, and I've seen Russia is now moving their technical nuclear weapons
closer to NATO.
Maybe
also.
this is a sign to say that, look,
guys, it's time to back off.
Maybe revisit your decisions because look, this is what we have and this is what we can do.
So another question for you is, thinking of the American elections, they're also starting in November, the same as ours.
Yes.
I want to put you on the spot here.
Okay.
Can you call it at this stage?
Can I say who is the possible
candidate for the American presidency?
Trump will come out victorious. And I'm saying this without fear of contradiction.
So you're calling the shots already here?
What the current law or legal pressure that was being exerted on Trump actually made him more popular. And we have seen it. We've seen Western media reporting the same thing, doing the same prediction. So most people view this as political persecution.
Even Putin even said it with an interview. It's like political persecution.
So this is definitely just going to make Trump more popular in the eyes of Americans. And we can see it with his rallies. We can see it with how people were waiting for him when the jury was done with him, how people were waiting for him outside.
New York was crazy.
Massive support despite the rulings.
And he raised 50, what million did he raise?
34 million in 24 hours, I think.
Yeah, in 24 hours. That tells you the guy's popularity.
That tells you the outcomes.
I've seen like the amount of celebrities the Democrats are getting to say, nah, guys, don't vote for Trump, don't vote for Trump. Like the amount of celebrities that are coming out in the US is crazy.
There's one funny thing that happened. When Trump was president, he was against TikTok.
Yeah, but now he's on TikTok. The fastest growing account, one of the fastest growing accounts.
So many followers like within one night. It's like
it's crazy. It's 2 million already.
It's higher than Joe Biden's.
It's been there for a while.
That shows you Trump's popularity. A lot of people think Trump is a lunatic or whatever, but I think he's just a nationalist, conservative. Who thinks his country is and the superpower is in a big danger.
But another question quickly for you is, normally Namibian elections, we could just call it straight off, just off the bat, you could call Namibian elections.
Clear.
But this time Namibian elections look very difficult.
Yeah, they look very difficult.
Can you call it at this stage for me?
I'm going to say, as a political science student and as a political analyst, that chances of SWAPO winning are very high, but SWAPO is going to lose a large portion of their seats in parliament. Particularly SWAPO is going to lose a lot of seats because of parties like the IPC who are coming in, who have a large support, particularly bringing in ethnicity again, particularly because of Itula, who is a Vambu, and a lot of Vambus, people, I don't know, but the ethnicity.
But then I also have to come in there and say also that not only based on the ethnicity, also I've checked his interviews out. He's done some amazing interviews.
People love
Itula because I've seen like Oshero love him, Damaras love him, Kalas love him. There's a whole bunch of people that love him. And one more question is, do you think that PDM will remain the official opposition? With Itula coming in strong, because Itula is coming in strong.
This is a tough one, but I would say that PDM support base, I would say it's a strong support base and it's a loyal support base. So chances of it happening are possible. We cannot outrule those chances. They are very possible, but once again, it depends really on the election. Voters turn up again. The voters turn up will literally determine these things. But the possibilities of PDM losing the official opposition,
they are there, but they're not as high.
The support base for PDM very loyal, as we've seen.
Coming back to a lot of people's favorite party, LPM, do you see any of them gaining any new seats, losing seats in parliament? What do you see LPM happening?
They will probably gain seats, maybe 1 or 2 seats. I don't see them gaining a lot of seats. I don't see anything going on with their campaign nationwide. I don't see them really pushing like other political parties are doing.
Nice. Guys, you heard it here first from us. It was lovely having you guys on the podcast with us today. Until next time.
Next time on Global Affairs. This is Martin Nafuka and Giovanni
du Plessis signing out.
Activated Talks.